get the night off, you'll get the chance to take the world apart and figure out how it works. Don't let me know what you find out. I need a car, you need a guide, who needs a map. If I don't die or worse, I'm gonna need a nap. At best I'll be asleep when you get back. I wanna see it when you find out what common stars and moons are all about. Wanna see their faces turn to backs of heads and slowly get smaller. Wanna see it now. Wanna see it now. I want specifics on the general idea. Wanna think what I should know. Want you to do me what to show. I wanna see movies of my dreams. I wanna see movies of my dreams. I wanna see movies of my dreams. Wanna see movies of my dreams. Wanna see it when you get stoned on a clouded, breezy desert afternoon. Wanna see it untame itself and break its owner. Wanna see it now. Wanna see it now.
Built to Spill scared everybody off. It's Wednesday. I think I want to talk a little bit about Euphoria. But let's look at Hunter Biden's artwork. This is the page for Hunter Biden's artwork, in case you're interested. I don't know if any of you have read Hunter Biden's book. I read part of it. I've downloaded it. I think I read part of it on this stream. But there's a part in which he's very high on a lot of drugs, and he's driving through the desert, and he sees an owl, and it seems to lead the way to where he needs to go. So an owl and owls feature prominently in his artwork. It must be so nice to be the son of like a rich guy. You never really have to worry about money or anything. His artwork, a lot of it kind of looks like stuff like this, like stuff you'd find in like a Mexican restaurant. And then I feel like he did improve though. If these are chronological, like if we scroll all the way to the bottom, it looks like his art did get better, right? It looks a little bit like he's improved his technique over the years. Here's him with the owl, maybe again. He's really obsessed with this snow owl and how this snow owl led him to his salvation. Apparently he's really into birds. I mean, it's okay. It's like stuff you might see in like a hotel, you know? It's not like the worst artwork I've ever seen. Um, it's like, okay, this is okay stuff. Like it could be worse. It could be Hitler's. His stuff was also really pretty bad. Oh, this was sold. Someone wanted to buy this. Someone did buy this. Interesting. Wait. So yeah, if we go all the way to the bottom and then we scroll back up to the top, it does look like he has refined his technique. He seems to be really, like a lot of people with too much free time on their hands, like really kind of into conspiracy lore. Um, but a lot of these look like really badly done homages to South American or Mexican art. I don't know. He's obsessed with this owl though. That's like his main theme. It's his main theme. Ooh, this one's called Melissa. It's a lady wearing a shirt that says hell on it. That's interesting. I find it interesting that Hunter Biden has become part of the podcast circuit. Um, Easy way for him to get clicks and I guess some eyeballs on his art. I drove people away with Built to Spill. There were 2 people here and now there are none. But whatever. I'm just chilling today, looking at some of Hunter Biden's art. And I guess I'll talk a little bit about Euphoria. I'll get there in a minute. Maybe if one person tunes in, I'll start talking about Euphoria. I wish there was a way we could just, you know, open it and then like go through like a slideshow of his various paintings. Um, yeah. This one I think is actually kind of interesting. I mean, I don't really like his technique. This is not really like a style that I find very interesting, but he's admitting something here, right? His owl, which is his sort of good omen talisman type of thing. And I guess this might even be a part of a kind of a self-portrait, right? He didn't even feel human because he was on so many drugs. Um, yeah, it must be really nice, honestly. Like, and I guess he's been on the podcast circuit talking about how his life kind of sucks or something, but I don't know. You get to make your horrible art. Okay, it's not horrible. It's okay. It's okay art. You get to make your okay art, which in any other world, no one would even probably look at. People on the left would probably call it like some form of cultural appropriation. This is Hunter Biden's art. I see I have one viewer. So I'll talk about Euphoria in a minute. Full disclosure with Euphoria, I have not watched any of the series and I do not intend to. I simply watched, and I did this with Stranger Things too, because I don't have time for serialized television. I actually hate television mostly because I don't care about most of the characters in the show. And that's all that television really is different characters, their diverging plot lines. And it's just I don't have time for all that. So I thought, with all the talk of Euphoria, that I might as well give the season finale, the series finale, a watch. And I guess Sam Levinson gets a lot of crap for being like a Jewish guy and a Zionist or whatever. And there's a lot of interesting talk about God in the last episode, and it could stand alone really as its own film. Without me having watched almost any of it, I still understood what was going on. So, this is Hunter Biden's weird derivative art. I can't say that it's like the worst stuff I've ever seen, but it's not very good either. It sort of reminds me of like something you might see like a high schooler put in their end of the year art show. Like, I guess that's what Hunter Biden's art reminds me of. Um, a little, who's that guy? Who's the guy? Is it Gauguin? I can never say his name right. That's what this one reminds me of. Uh, Reminds me of this guy who I'm pretty sure had a story. I'm pretty sure, oh my goodness. I think it was Mom, Somerset Mom, like wrote a whole book making fun of this dude. Anyway, so I guess I'll talk about Euphoria. What's going on, Suproth? How are you today in internet land? Anyone who's here, please say hello. Have you seen Euphoria? Are you interested in seeing Euphoria? If you are, today's show might not be the show for you, because if you haven't seen it and you want to watch it and you don't want spoilers, you might want to tune out. Because I just watched it. And I only watched the end. Because I hate serialized television and I don't care for most of the characters. And I did the same thing with Stranger Things. I tried actually in earnest to watch Stranger Things when it first came out, and I thought it was boring and derivative, so I didn't watch it. And then because everybody was talking about the end, I wanted to check it out. And I guess I have a habit of doing that now, where I'm just going to take these really popular shows, watch the last episode, and tell you what I think about them. um, HB did a reasonably successful interview. Oh, Hunter Biden. It was good PR for him and his dad. Yeah, I mean, if only I could be Hunter Biden and devote my life to making these, um, I don't know, okay paintings. I'm not going to call them bad. What is this, like a Pokeball? I'm not going to call them bad, but yeah, he's obsessed with this owl. You know, he saw this owl while he was driving on a bunch of drugs, and it led him to salvation. So he's obsessed with, I guess, depicting it. I find this one to be the most interesting, I guess. I don't know. A lot of these, it looks like weird, like the left would be like, why are you culturally appropriating Mexican art, bro? That's what it looks like a lot, to me. It's not very original. It's not that interesting. I don't know. But I guess I want to talk about Euphoria and talk about how it's kind of a mirror. And I stayed away from talking about Euphoria for a long time because it just did not interest me. I tried to watch like when it first came out and I was like, okay, like I don't feel like watching this. Um, let's put up a screenshot of Jules, the trans woman character, while I talk about Euphoria. I don't know, you might not like what I have to say about it. um, I have Porn Kills Love here at the bottom on my ticker because, okay, so people wanted to talk all sorts of things about Euphoria, right? It's somehow it's actually glorifying this kind of stuff when I think it's actually quite critical of it. Um, and I think this tablet magazine write-up was interesting. So let me show you what I'm talking about here, and we can react to some of the things. But I avoided it because I didn't really want to make some reactionary work about it, because that's kind of what I was doing at the time when it came out. A lot of my stuff was very reactionary. And so I kind of avoided doing that because I've kind of stepped back on those feelings, because I think both the left and the right, the extremes on both sides, have a really difficult time with art. They have an art issue, I think. How do I get out of the cursor? Make it stop being a cursor. Sorry, I'm like in my highlighting. All right, we'll just share this tab instead. So if you've not seen the end and you want to watch the end, um, You think the show is critical? Interesting. I don't know your name, but welcome to Memento Mori. Seems appropriate for this channel. And I think the thing with Euphoria is, or even just like cultural in general today, I will call it porn mogging. We live in a porn mogged culture, a culture that's been taken over by pornographic imagery and pornographic, ideas. So when this show first came out, Euphoria, I didn't really want to have anything to do with it because having a reactionary opinion about art is boring. Um, it's what, but it also indicates that the art is successful. If you're having some kind of crazy reaction to it, it means that the art is provoking thought. And to me, that's good, no matter what it is. That's why I don't think, we'll just really quickly go back to Hunter Biden's art. That's why I don't really think this art is very successful. It doesn't make me think. It's not that interesting. It seems pretty derivative of other styles of art. It's not original, right? So I don't think Hunter Biden's that great of an artist. Like, it's okay. Again, it's stuff that you might see at like a high school art show. I think that's his level, that's his technique. And I do commend him because from here, let's look at one of, I think, his older pieces. It does look like he got a little bit better at his technique. It does. But this stuff isn't very interesting to me. I don't know what you guys think. You're a former right-wing extremist. Well, welcome to the channel. I would have never called myself an extremist, but I did get a lot of those kinds of people interested in what I had to say, merely because I do talk about how I think pornography has been very detrimental to our culture and that it kills love. That's why it's on the ticker here at the bottom. And I think this channel is like a place for middle ground for people who are disgusted by the extremes on like either side, or at least that's what I feel like I'm doing. It casts a shadow. I mean, I think it's a mirror. That's why I wrote the best art is merely a mirror, because I think what he's doing is creating a mirror. And people don't want to look at it. And most people don't want to look in the mirror. Shadow on American society. Quite honestly, people don't want to admit. Exactly. You regret it. Regret it. Well, don't worry. All are welcome here. All are welcome. So, okay, let's go to this tablet article, which I thought was very interesting and well written, and it seemed like it came from more of a centrist perspective than anything else. I kind of skipped over the beginning of this article. Again, if you've not watched Euphoria's ending, go watch it and then come back to this. There's going to be a lot of spoilers. If you're a fan of Euphoria and you did watch the ending, stick around to see what I have to say about it. But really the point of this stream today is to say that art is a mirror. And that's what I think great or interesting art does, is that it merely holds up a mirror to the rest of society, and it lets society talk about its reaction to it. Does this kind of make sense? Anyway, so I kind of skipped over like the beginning of this. I don't have like a lot of the beginning highlighted. A lot of people say it's like some kind of like Israeli propaganda. I'm not with that stuff. Like, that's so boring. Like, what a boring interpretation. What you can say about Sam Levinson is that he is the son of Barry Levinson, who I think I have Barry's page up here. Very, very famous director, right? Barry Levinson, all of these films, I mean, I'm old, so I know what they are, but all of these films are were very popular, right? Diner, people love Diner. I've actually never seen Diner. The Natural, Rain Man, couldn't avoid Rain Man for like 10-year period there. Avalon, Bugsy wasn't very good. Toys. Now I find it very interesting that he directed Toys, which maybe we'll talk about someday, because Toys is one of the most bizarre films I've ever seen. Then we have some other, Wag the Dog, also really good. So his dad, I think he gets a lot of his um, drive, from his dad. And Euphoria is also his own story of overcoming addiction, something that a lot of people do not understand. Something I barely understand, because that's not one of the problems I have. I have lifelong depression. That's my problem. I don't have the addiction thing. I always found it to be like really self-destructive behavior, that it like doesn't help you. It doesn't help you. You think Euphoria is not very Zoomer coded, it's more millennial. Well, a millennial made it, right? So Sam, who I believe is 41 years old, let's look at his chart actually real quick. Here's Sam Levinson's astrological chart. Okay. He's born January 8th, and I was really wondering, by his content, I was like, he's like gotta be a winter baby. There's something about us winter babies that make we make very like weird, sort of provocative stuff. I think we're into that. But Capricorns are known more for their business acumen, I think. But I knew he was I just had a feeling it was January he was born in. And so, yeah, January 8th, 1985. So he's 2 years younger than me. So yeah, he's a millennial. He made millennial content, a millennial show. I've not watched any of his other work. And to be fair, once more, I've barely watched Euphoria. I watched the last episode of Euphoria. I tried to turn on the first episode of this season, and I was so bored that I turned it off, which happens to me a lot. Like, people are hyping up stuff. They're really interested in it. They say all sorts of things. But I try to give art a shot, especially like things that deal with television or film, because I like them as a medium. But I was not interested. So I was like, you know what? I'll just wait until they release, the last episode of it, and I'll watch it. And of course, it was an hour and a half long. And, are we still on his? We'll put it back. It was like an hour and a half long. And it could stand alone. Really, if you didn't know anything about the characters or anything about the plot of the show, you can still follow the last episode and know what's going on. And the entire last episode, I guess, rubbed people the wrong way, because it talked a lot about God. And the one character, who I guess was Muslim throughout the show, some ex-addict who goes on, it's a Western, who goes on a revenge plot, right, to avenge his friend Rue's death. Please forgive me, I'm not a fan of the show. I just wanted to see what it was about. So I tried to watch the first episode of the season, couldn't get past it, was boring. But I did watch the last one. I watched the hour and a half long finale, and it could have been a film just like by itself, I think. So I think I'm justified in my decision not to watch the whole thing. I don't have time for it. I didn't like, I think Sam is making interesting statements in his art. I think it is very good art, actually, because so many people are talking about it. And I think that's interesting. And it's captured a lot of people's minds. I think that's the hallmark of good art, is that it creates a conversation, right? There's no definitive answer here. So yeah, I did not watch I only watched the last episode. So if you're a huge fan, you might also be mad at me because I don't even remember like most of the people's names. I remember Zendaya's name is Rue, and Jules is the transgender person, and you have what Sydney Sweeney as like the OnlyFans content creator, and we'll get into it. So anyway, lots of American media has held themes of success in vain and spite, and promoting self-inflicted tragedy as acceptably common. I mean, is we could go back to the Greeks, right? Tragedy. Yeah, I think a lot of people's reactions to the last episode of Euphoria were like they were uncomfortable with tragedy. I believe America has unfortunately become a trauma factor. You mean trauma factory, which is reflected in shows like this. Zoomers are not really experiencing life, it seems, but they want community and acceptance, which is hard to find. Interesting. Why did morons? Oh, because the character who goes on his revenge arc has a hat at the end of the show that says like Zion on it. And I guess he goes to where Rue spent some time, some Christian, like, what would you call them? Prepper kind of people, like out in the middle of nowhere. Homesteaders, right? That's a better word, homesteaders. And he reverts to his non-Islamic name. And so they're saying, oh no, it's like anti-Islam and all this shit. But I think Sam's also reflecting how he, over the last several years, 7 years, has become closer to God. That's what it says in this tablet magazine article here. So that's why I don't feel it's reflective of the generation it claims to represent. I guess. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. This is not going to be, I don't know, like a super heavy show. It's just me, kind of my impression of the show. And it's definitely a Western. I wouldn't even call it like, I mean, yeah, sure, neo-Western noir. Like it's a Western. America itself is a continent-spanning country, and modern youth endure the digital simulacrum as their biggest social medium, so often between grueling work or schooling. Okay, interesting. It showed how people trade off their own dignity. I mean, what I get from the show, and I did not watch it, okay? I was not that interested. I was not that interested in making reactionary content about the transgender character or any of that. But let's look at the transgender character. Like, come on, look at these shoulders. And I guess a lot of people were upset about the story arc for this person, but it seems to me to fit what could happen to one of these people. A lot of these kinds of people get very heavily into sex work, and I guess she I'll just say she has a sugar daddy, and sits in an ivory tower painting horrible paintings. Like, this is awful. Like, art department, get your shit together. Why didn't they just hire Hunter Biden? Like, even his art's better than this. Hunter Biden. I don't know. Did I close it? Did I close his artwork? Hunter Biden. I also read this, I guess I don't know where the tab is. I also read, not this. This is not what I wanted to put on, although this is funny. Where is it? Where's the Rolling Stone piece? Which wasn't very good. The tablet piece was a lot better, I think. It was a lot more honest. All right, we'll put that back on. Where's the Rolling Stone? I could have sworn I had a Rolling Stone article open up. Oh yeah, here it is. This wasn't very good. It was a very poorly written article, and of course you see I've highlighted the author's name because I needed to find out who wrote it. It just wasn't a very good article about it, I thought. And so my impression about this show is that it shows addiction because Sam Levinson was once an addict. right? And it shows how so-called sex work, which is a sanitized term that I really don't like using, uh, you know, is I mean, I don't think he was glamorizing it. What I think, this is the distillation I got from that hour and a half that I watched, was that these kids were actually the kids that you don't want to be like. It's like a cautionary tale of the kids that you don't want to be like, you know? You don't want to be like these kids because it's a dead end. And I think that's what was interesting. And it also, it wasn't a happy ending, and it allowed for tragedy. So let me go back to this tablet piece, okay? Because I have some highlights here. And it didn't really start for me getting interesting until like mid article. But it says, he says, Sam Levinson says, I began to see the limitations of perpetual sympathy, right? I think that's an interesting statement because too many of these programs that are supposed to help addicts, live a different, better life, end up enabling them because of this kind of sympathy card. I think, this sort of weaponized empathy. I think Gad Sad's wrong when he says suicidal empathy. I think weaponized empathy is a better term. Anyway, Levinson said of the shift, right? Limitations of this perpetual sympathy. When you have 75,000 people a year dying from overdoses because of this one drug, it's not hard to conclude that the people selling it are evil. How can you honor those dead young people while sympathizing with those who poisoned them? And so I think what he did at the end of this show, and maybe he didn't have this vision at the beginning of the show, and this is kind of a testament to how television and its formats suffer under the streaming platforms, because serialized television used to come on once a week and you'd wait and you'd have to read TV Guide to find out what was coming on, what would be on, you know? And I think television has really suffered from this streaming because it took what, like 7 years for them to make what is it, only 3 seasons, when, if I guess it had been on a more traditional kind of television broadcast, it probably wouldn't have suffered this kind of thing. So let's see what else you guys are saying in the chats today. Again, say hello if you're here. We are talking about Euphoria today and how the best art is merely a mirror. Authenticity a la sincerity is also hard to find. There are plenty of prim and cookie cutter people still in their multitudes in the US and Europe who are basically part of the middle class college circuit. It's a sad reality that trans-identified people do end up as a fetish. Exactly. I think that was really actually pretty realistic, right? Being a prostitute is not glamorous work. Subcultures and real groups exist and persist with however many of their lively characters who capably partake in these cultures. Plenty of Gen Zers don't have meaningful hobbies. I don't know. I don't know that many of them outside of being like a high school teacher at one point. And a lot of the students I had were actually pretty well-rounded. I don't know. I definitely wouldn't want to go to high school in this day and age. I just watched, what did I watched a thing about child influencers, and that whole, there's like, I guess, a child influencer, Netflix made it, and like the mom basically pimped out all these kids, and it was like during the COVID times. I can't remember what it was called right now, but that was interesting. And like any Netflix thing, I would have to look, more into it. But let's get back to Euphoria for a second, right? So he was also going on like a spiritual journey, Sam Levinson here. And what are my other highlights? Gen Z is no longer in school, and Levinson forces us to confront young people stepping up into an adulthood and inheriting America battered by years of chaos, unrest, and political upheaval. My note here for this is, when has it been any different? I think a lot of people would benefit from reading literature. I still believe in literature. They would benefit from reading literature, reading history, to know that human nature hasn't actually really changed all that much. Although I think we've gotten better at being nicer to each other a little bit. However, the internet has made it so that people can hide and be anonymous and be like very cruel to each other online. And I had an audience member say like a few minutes ago that this is more a reflection of millennials, but I just say it's kind of a reflection of our culture at large. But I don't think that this America is different from any other time in America. Like, America has been fraught with this kind of stuff for a very, very long time. It's not new, in my opinion. So this author is calling it a postmodern Western. I find it interesting. It was shot 65 millimeter. I thought it was film when I was watching it. There's just something that you can tell right away. It's like actual film. I did not watch the rest of the series, but because Sam Levinson is Hollywood sort of he's the son of Barry Levinson, very famous director. He's watched a lot of movies, right? And that's what I would want in somebody who's making this kind of stuff. And I love The Searchers. The Searchers is one of my favorite Westerns. But it's interesting to me that, he was inspired by Westerns. He was inspired by Clint Eastwood also. And he talks about his Judaism later on in this article. But I guess from the beginning, he was less spiritually inclined than he is now. And 2020 did that to people. No matter what you want to say about 2020 policies, etc., it forced a lot of people to do some searching, soul searching, right? And the people that didn't do that and just sort of like hunkered down and watched Tiger King and yelled at people for going outside, I think are going to be in trouble in the future, because they still haven't dealt with what happened. And they didn't deal with it at the time either. And I think it was a traumatizing event for all of us, no matter what we believe about it. And if you didn't go on a spiritual journey, it might not work out for you. I don't know. Anyway, he was inspired by Unforgiven, another really great Western. We're just going through my highlights on this tablet magazine. Maybe we'll look at some of the interaction I've had on Twitter concerning this series. Because I but that's why this article is so interesting, because it highlights both the reactionary side of the left and the right regarding this show. So I'd recommend it. I thought it was a really good read, but I'll give you my highlights. Over time, and this is what we're about to see, over time, the condemnation of the show that began with the political right in season 1 spread across the political binary, right? We see a lot of this, especially with like the Israel hate. Euphoria became the Israel of pop culture. And the person I talked to on Twitter said that Sam said this, but no, it's the author is saying this. In the way discourse surrounding it seemed to produce a horseshoe effect, uniting the ultra-left and the ultra-right in rhetorically distinct but spiritually indistinguishable Puritan rage. Why are Zoomers of the right and the left alike and so hostile to sex and pornographic art? And so I might have a different interpretation than this author, or at least I feel like I would. Like, I do feel like this is a very centrist piece of writing, and my reactionary sort of more right-wing, like conservative take, I challenge you to actually grow up and become less conservative. But anyway, or get older and hold on to nonsense to nonsense values. Anyway, this culture is a pornmogged culture. Everything about it is pornographic. And so this is a reaction, right, to, I don't know if Zoomers are actually like this, but this is what writers are saying. This is a reaction to that porn-mogged culture, which again, see the ticker at the bottom of the screen, porn kills love. And I think that's the problem with pornography. It's exploitative, it shows violence, and it doesn't show, you know, what the reality of what I think lovemaking should be. Okay? That's what I think. Lots of other women who are far more feminist than me have articulated this better, but this is why they're so hostile to it, right? The prevalence of porn and its consequences, detachment of dating sites, aftermath of Me Too. I mean, I don't know if I buy that. All engendered an atmosphere of sex negativity. I mean, but it's not real sex, you know, it's hyper violence supposing as sex. That's what I think anyway. So that's what this article says. And then of course there were fringe critiques from the overtly anti-Semitic quarters of the internet. Right. And I've done shows about Robert Mapplethorpe, and I think what a lot of people, you know, I read that entire book about that weirdo. I think what a lot of people miss is the occult aspect. And when you start bringing that up, people, you know, act like you're a crazy person. But Robert Mapplethorpe was a Satanist, a homosexual Satanist. Like, why can't we just say that? And I don't think Robert Mapplethorpe's art is that good. But again, art is, it is not objective. It's subjective. And plenty of people liked Robert Mapplethorpe's art. I don't have to like it, right? I don't have to like Euphoria, you know, to see that it's art. I don't have to like it to know what it is. There's a disparity with the age spectrum of Gen Z as to the latecomers and Gen Alphas in terms of cultural and intellectual capability. Well, it's because a lot of them are illiterate and a lot of them haven't seen. I grew up in a household, so maybe I'm an outlier. Maybe I'm more like a Sam Levinson. You know, I was exposed to lots of film, lots of different kinds of art. My mother was into art. My dad was into movies. I was, as part of like when my sister and I would fight, my dad would make us sit on opposite ends of the couch and watch Westerns. That was my punishment, to watch Westerns. Lots of Paul Schrader influence. Yeah, I see that too, actually. I was watching Starship Troopers again. You know, I saw some Paul Verhoeven in there also, I think, in the absurdity aspect. A nod to Taxi Driver. Full disclosure, I don't think I've ever sat through Taxi Driver. I hate it so much. Right? I'm not like the be all end all authority on this. I hate when people say they are. That's boring. Progressives don't like Euphoria because it largely represents lots of minorities as unhappy. I mean, that would be any person living in the United States right now, right? Unhappy, addicted to drugs, addicted to pornography, addicted to OnlyFans, addicted to exploiting yourself, you know. Most of the attention with outcries of this sort of nature is performative rather than, yeah, exactly. None of these people actually care about any of this. They just want to put in their 2 cents. And that's why I think it's a successful piece of art, because it's holding up a mirror and it's creating conversation. It's interesting, right? It's provocative. So I think Robert Mapplethorpe was making satanic art. Okay, if you want to watch a video about Robert Mapplethorpe and his pet monkey and how deeply he and Patti Smith both were into, you know, the occult, the dark occult is what I will call it, you may do so. And I think a lot of artists play with the occult. I think it's kind of par for the course with them. Uh, Speaking as a failed artist myself. Anyway, so then we have Alexander Dugin wrote that America is a disgusting civilization, as if Russia's any better. Americans are stupid slaves on the Epstein menu of cruel cannibal elites with no reason to exist. Like, a lot of my shows recently have been warning against this kind of nihilism, right? And Dugan, again, an occult, he's a Satanist. Can't listen to these Satanists, okay? Uh, Left wing backlash began as early as season 2. For many progressives, Euphoria no longer represented a humane portrait of marginalized American youth, but the misogynistic fantasia of a toxic white male auteur. I didn't see it that way. Again, I think it's a mirror. I even saw somebody on Twitter once complain about how Sydney Sweeney could never do half the stuff that happens in the show on OnlyFans because OnlyFans is more regulated than that. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And you can have all of these different interpretations, which is what makes it art. Anyway, it always begins with the character, right? I highlighted this because I'm not that interested. That's why I don't watch serialized television. I don't really want to follow more than one person and their journey. That's the difference between, let's say, maybe a film and serialized television. Serialized television forces you to watch all these different extraneous characters and their plot lines. Whereas if you just watch a film, it's usually about one or two people, right? And their journey. And I'm more interested in that. Um, it's just a way to pad out television, I think. That it's a flaw of its format. But it is hyper addictive, as this author says. Um, the most widely scorned storyline of Euphoria's third season, Cassie's descent into OnlyFans fame and online sex work, perhaps best encapsulated Levinson's ability to weaponize viewers' political assumptions against them. Right? He's a little weirdo like Winter Baby. He's playing games with y'all. Progressive feminists and sex workers, or aka prostitutes, including Sydney Leathers. I don't even know who these people are, and Maitland Ward. This reveals more about the author than anything else. Like, who these people are? Publicly condemned the storyline for portraying Cassie, played by a game Sydney Sweeney, without boundaries, arguing that Levinson implicitly framed women in the industry as hollow and damaged. A podcast host tells Cassie, "You sound like a Democrat," and she says, "I'm not retarded." Again, I haven't watched most of the show. That's not true about Sydney Sweeney character on OnlyFans. They do much worse, atrocious things, unfortunately. Okay, yeah, I wouldn't know. I haven't done a lot of digging into that. Dugan is right, and Russia is hardly distinguishable. I don't think Dugan is right, and I think he's a Satanist, and I don't think you should listen to somebody like him. I don't think you should listen to these doom people, because it's also like they're reactionary. They want to paint a certain picture. That's propaganda to me. Um, I'll say it all the time. The wheel in the sky, progress, let's say, it doesn't stop. And it's not going to stop just because Dugan is a weird doomer that wants young American males to be the same as him. Okay. Russia has major problems with HIV and sex workers as well. It's not a utopia. Of course it isn't. How could it be? We live in the 21st century. Part of the idea, or the not idea, but the result of globalism is that a lot of the places that we talk about are pretty much the same at this point. And yes, I would say it's because, and maybe Sam Levinson would agree, not enough people have God in their lives. I don't know, just a thought, just a thought. And I think Dugan is an awful person to listen to about anything. Total weird intelligence operation there. Russian propaganda. Um, so also, of course, the right-wing critics. Levinson is a Jewish lech of sinful Hollyweird. Megyn Kelly called Levinson sick. And the reason I highlighted this about Megyn Kelly is because with a lot of these people, this is a projection. This is admission of, I think, her own guilt. She's actually become, or has always been, very, let's use Lena Dunham's term, fame sick. Okay? She will do and say, Megyn Kelly will do and say anything to keep those clicks. Right? And so Sydney Sweeney, I guess, was like all for it. Like she was in the best shape of her life. Pop culture is already saturated with sexual commodification and self-exploitation. Couldn't have said it better myself. I would call that a porn-mogged culture, to use the parlance of our times. The rise of independent pornography, right? We've normalized this sort of self-exploitation, and I think it's been very detrimental to many. The fact that you can manage an OnlyFriends, oh, sorry, the fact that you can manage a friend's OnlyFans career and make a living off that didn't exist until very recently, Levinson told me. In the past, you had to be a pimp with a stable of hookers. Well, I mean, I think that also speaks to Levinson's, maybe because he grew up in a sheltered environment, although I guess he came into contact with a lot of addicts because he himself was an addict. But I'll tell you that even before OnlyFans, um, there were the webcam girls. And before even that, if you wanted to be a prostitute on the internet, it was not difficult to use Craigslist or Backpage. So unfortunately, women have been finding ways to exploit themselves. And I think our culture has normalized it, but I do not think that's what Euphoria did. I think it held up a mirror to it. I don't think it normalized anything. And I think it was a cautionary tale, once more, of these teenagers, now young adults in the last season, who were ultimately losers and, became criminals and prostitutes. That's what I think. It's a cautionary tale. I know, right? Megyn Kelly is awful. Megyn Kelly is never right. Megyn Kelly is a click whore. All right, so I think Levinson didn't really know about that, but how would he? If the culture is genuinely squeamish about pornography, why is it everywhere? I mean, the culture isn't actually squeamish about it. It's all reactionary, performative. Like nobody actually, other than like maybe the radical feminists and certain people on the right, are squeamish about it. I think it kills love. That's why the ticker is there. It shows unrealistic acts of sexual violence that then get perpetrated mimically throughout the culture. Levinson chose to observe it, right? It's a mirror. Cassie seemingly has it all, but her desire and her imagination are captured by the internet. I find that very powerful. I think that's a lot. I think that's describing a lot of people. No one's thoughts are really their own. These desires are, of the net, born from this nebulous kind of thing that's mapping itself onto reality, a sort of demiurge, if you will. And as an artist, he's drawn to duality. Predictably, fans of Euphoria still took to Reddit and similarly wretched platforms to express desire to see Nate finally pay for his crimes. Again, I only watched the end, the last hour and a half of the show. I'm not watching any more of it. I don't really care. I think you could watch that on its own. It would be an interesting, compelling piece of television. And I think Sam Levinson's an okay director. Like, I watch so many things that not a lot impresses me anymore as far as direction goes. Um, like he's okay. He's kind of like Hunter Biden. It's okay. It's not good. It's not bad. It's okay. Um, anyway, so online audiences now behave less like thoughtful spectators than like a digital mob, unconsciously demanding ritual punishment. This I found very interesting. He says, I like to push violence into a realm where it makes me laugh, admitted Levinson. That's his creepy winter baby thing, with a grin. There's a certain amount of guilt you can impart onto the audience by making them aware of what they're actually asking for. He's a little tricky. He's a little trickster guy. A little bit. A little bit. Um, the Maddie character, see, I I don't know because I didn't watch it. Was a complete predator. But honestly, people like that still exist where they exploit their friends. Nobody in Euphoria, I don't believe, was meant to be ideal. And humanity isn't. Human beings are flawed, are they not? That's why people have to read more literature, I think. If middle aged men share open and to whatever degree common tales of having nudie mags stashed away under beds or even shared by their fathers to introduce them to sex, it's a far elder problem. Yeah, but even that stuff wasn't I don't think was violent. Um Playboy, even though I don't agree with Playboy as an entity, wanted to kind of make it like this distinguished thing, you know? Porn is definitely right. We're in a porn mogged culture, totally over sexualized. But the reaction to it is to just become like, I guess, celibate, which is we are trading in one extreme for another. Um, that's just what I think. Um, okay, the thing I don't get about fentanyl, Ruse, Narcotics Anonymous sponsor and surrogate father Ali says to her in episode 7 is what proves to be a prophetic throwaway line, why kill off your customers? It felt right, said Levinson on the show's harrowing climactic death. A big motivating factor for writing the show was finding a way to discuss this plague that's killing all these young people. And it's not just the fentanyl, it is the pornography too. It's we've never had, I was born in 1983. We did not have porn in our pockets, which is what these kids have now. And they also have ways of making fake pornography, like deep fakes, all sorts of things. We have unleashed a strange kind of hell into the world. But I also think that there are many people like you and I out there, maybe more moderate, maybe more centrist at this point than reactionary right wing, but people who want to find solutions to it. And I think it's changing hearts and minds. I think it's education campaigns, making it uncool to like this stuff. I don't know, just some ideas I'm throwing out there. Um, right, fentanyl is now the most prolific killer of people between ages of 18 and 45. Uh, I'm typing in fentanyl. Where does it come from? Asia, China. So what I see fentanyl is a Chinese bioweapon. That's what I think. Um, okay, let's see. Following Rue's demise, Ali tells his AA group that he too once believed the world would improve if society simply learned to treat addiction primarily as a disease. I don't believe it is a disease. I believe it is a behavior. I think the disease narrative is a cop out. Get angry at me if you want. That's just what I think. I could change my mind if more information was given to me. But I've dealt with this kind of thing in my life. I've known many of these kinds of people. I thought it was actually a very realistic portrayal of people in AA and NA, who got really, maybe you don't know one, but I think everybody knows this guy, this archetype now, that the sober bro that walks around talking about how much he loves God and Jesus and stuff, which is good. I think that's good for him. But, I also don't know if AA is the best solution currently, but it does provide people community and resources. So I don't know. I don't think it's a disease, but that's just my thought. So primarily a disease deserving unconditional sympathy, but he explains extending sympathy toward addiction inevitably requires extending sympathy toward the people profiting from it as well. And he, like the show's creator, is finding it problematic to extend grace to predators. If you poison kids for money, I liked that. You're evil. I liked that it was definitely sending a message like this. It was not better. Those mags with fetishized themes of and literal examples of naive teenage girls and women with body modifications. I feel like you're a feminist, Suproth. Weren't good. But I don't know. I feel like they were at least erotic and not like not what you see today. Whatever. That's just what I think. I have mixed feelings about this stuff, and I don't have a really strong opinion one way or the other on that. I think the stuff out there today is far worse and far more disgusting and has themes of bestiality and incest. Okay. That's, I think I've seen the evolution of pornography. I used to sell fucking pornography. I've seen the evolution of it. From that stuff in the 70s until now, lots of things have changed, and I believe for the worse. Anyway, I think ultimately pornography in video form is a killer of love. But I think a lot of the reactionary right has issues with nudity and sexual content. So, and I don't think banning that kind of stuff is a solution to making it uncool. Banning something makes it cool, like immediately. Anyway, so I think we're wrapping up this article here. The most peaceful place she had ever known, a conservative Christian family compound in a town aptly named Jerusalem. And I guess this is where the anti-Semites got mad, because Allie's wearing a hat that says Zion on it, and he's hanging out with this conservative Christian family in their compound. It is a little on the nose, Sam. But it says here, there he sadly informs the family that Rue is gone. They take him in, feed him, and together they mourn the loss of Euphoria's tortured protagonist. In doing so, Levinson ends the season and likely the series itself, not with irony or nihilistic despair, but with beauty, the hero's journey. And I think actually the end could be interpreted in a lot of different ways, which is why it's art. Okay? But with beauty, the hero's journey, penance, and the fragile possibility that evil engulfing modern America is not unconquerable after all. Levinson, who has gotten closer to his own faith over the past few years, he says he can't remove Judaism from who he is, credits God with helping him arrive at that peace. And he refuses nihilism. And he says, I don't think of myself as cynical, and I don't want to put out cynical movies or arts, as he says. There's plenty of nihilism in the world. I see Euphoria largely as a rejection of it. So that's what the artist says his interpretation of his own art is. This is interesting. I thought it could kind of tie into what I talk about with like millennial masochism. And also, I guess I highlighted Billy Corgan because I hate Billy Corgan and he's retarded. Good job, Billy, having that wrestling show, because it really helped me know that I can separate the art from the artist. I can still listen to Siamese Dream and be okay with it, even though you're a cornball who makes up conspiracy theories. And P.S. Billy Corgan, if you're listening, Sonic Youth will always be a cooler band than Smashing Pumpkins, like forever. Fighting the good fight from the confines of within the machine. Yeah, I guess, Billy. Is that what you're doing? Part of what is central to Judaism is that the impossible is always possible, he said. So I think that ends my exploration of Euphoria. 7 people are here. Please say hello if you're here. It's been an hour. Um, is there other stuff I wanted to see or show you guys? This is funny. This is kind of funny. So James Elroy, who's written a lot of like mystery and detective books, says that it's satanic to me, the dependency people have on computers. So we're switching gears a little bit here into a little bit more lighthearted kind of conversation. But I thought this was hilarious. The outspoken crime novelist talks about his provocative new book, his hatred of technology, and why the film adaptation of LA Confidential is a turkey. I love LA Confidential. So I don't know. I haven't read this, but I read the first part, and I'll make a comment after I read the paragraph. James Elroy does not own a computer, his publicist explains. So will a phone interview be okay? When the self-proclaimed mad dog of American crime fiction picks up his landline at the appointed hour, it transpires that he has never owned a mobile phone either, nor sent an email, nor figured out how to turn on his ex-wife Helen Node's TV set. Something tells me Helen is still doing a lot of work for him, right? This is such a luxury of people born before 1975, let's say, right? They're able to totally just, if they're already established in their careers, etc., they're able to avoid this whole thing altogether. So I thought that was like kind of a funny article. I think I'm gonna save the Graham Plattner talk for later. We're doing like a movie show, so we have Quentin Tarantino who says modern cinema inspires contempt, and he would rather read a book than watch new movies. Like, gee, I'm sorry, Quentin, that we're not making stuff like we did in the 70s that you could then rip off and call your own intellectual property. Sorry about that, bro. I guess we're just in the potpourri part of the show right now. So, far left LA mayoral candidate Rahman breaks down in tears. There she is. I guess Spencer's getting more votes than her. We'll see what happens. Yeah, this article wasn't very good. I think that's it. I think I'm going to do a breakdown of Starship Troopers in the future, because Starship Troopers is an interesting movie. And there's a lot of Saturnian symbolism in it. Thanks for the stream. He is totally a hack. He's terrible. What are we booing? That I'm going, or Quentin Tarantino? I think that why don't we look at maybe some of my Twitter bookmarks. I don't know. We're in the potpourri part. If you're here, say hello. All right, we're just gonna look at some Twitter bookmarks. So let's talk about Graham Plattner for a second. This point shouldn't be overlooked. How did the world learn of Democrat Graham Plattner's Nazi tattoo? It was a video of him dancing in his underwear, which was his wedding gift to his brother and wife. Unheard level of narcissism. I just love that the Democrats, who've been calling everybody they don't like Nazis for the past, like, what, almost a decade now, have totally like gone with this guy. Like, that's so funny to me. Like, yeah, Tarantino sucks. Go shoot some more feet, Tarantino, you weirdo. Anyway, so yeah, I find this man's existence to be like heavily ironic. This is a nice one. This is a positive one. You have a dream that feels like a bridge too far, a script, a short film concept, your first feature film, but the time always seems to go to someone else's dream, and at the end, you're mentally exhausted. Give yourself 45 minutes to an hour every morning before your day job and work on that dream. Every day will feel like a victory. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm devoting a lot of my time while I'm packing all my stuff, and who knows what my future holds, but I'm trying to focus on making my own art. Oh, I love this clip. This is so funny. Let's watch this.
We have an attitude problem here?
We just wanted to welcome you back.
During a parade, Kerrigan complained to Mickey Mouse. It's so corny, so dumb. I hate it. The most corny thing I've ever done.
Yeah. I think I would feel that way too. 8 people here, say hello. You've reached the Twitter bookmarks portion of the live stream. This is kind of an interesting story. This is a cool, I guess I bookmarked some like inspiring things today because I'm feeling sad.
What would I tell them? I'd tell them that every person in the world is an individual with a different genetic makeup and a different upbringing. And the way that you're thinking is so radically different than every other person in the world and incomparable that if you have an idea and you want to move forward with it, don't worry so much about the competition because nobody will be able to replicate you.
Truer words have never been spoken, or they probably have, but you get what I'm saying. I felt good when I saw that. Oh, let's do this. This clip's hilarious. There's Siskel and Ebert arguing over, what was this movie called? Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. This is so funny.
I had a lot of conflicting thoughts while I was watching this movie. First of all, I have to say there are some big laughs. There really are, and the audience seemed to enjoy it. After it was over, though, it left me feeling kind of sad and empty because the movies it satirizes were trying to say something serious, and this movie undermines and ridicules their message.
Wow.
Another thing, the satire isn't as finely tuned as it could be, and it doesn't find many worthy targets.
So it's even not that funny, I think.
A lot of it isn't satire at all, but simply the parading of negative black stereotypes, which if the movie had been made by whites, would be instantly categorized as racist. I'm trying to draw a line here, trying to get the joke and not be too serious, but boy, it's hard to do.
Boy, it's hard to do.
And I can't recommend Don't Be a Menace.
Oh, I recommend it. I laughed throughout, and if it had been made by whites, well, if somebody had been made by black movies had been made by, if you get into that kind of thinking, Roger, it's like you don't want to acknowledge that you did acknowledge you had a good time in laughing at the picture.
I had a good time at part of the picture. It wasn't that well made.
Oh, come on, Roger.
It didn't continue to build after
it is as well made as...
And here's another
it's as well made. Wait a second.
It's satirizing good movies.
That's right.
And the films like Airplane and Hot Shots are satirizing bad movies.
Okay, but are you saying, think about this, just as a high principle now we're discussing. Okay. Are you saying that there are subjects that are off limits for satire? High-minded pictures are off limits for satire.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Sure sounds like it.
No. What I'm saying
Sure
is
sounds
this is
like
not a high-minded picture.
No.
Well, it's not.
I see. No, sure, if they want to, I said in my review, the satire is not very sharp. Basically, a lot of the scenes are not really satirizing other movies. They're just making fun of black stereotypes, such as the woman who has all of the kids and they don't know who their daddy is. Which of the movies, the good movies, is that one from?
It's a joke. It's a joke, and they're having fun with it, and people are recognizing it. You've got some guilt trip working on in your head.
I don't have to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because I think if you were a freer spirit, you'd say, this is funny.
Would you like to see a movie just like this about Jews?
If the picture were funny, I'd be laughing.
If the picture were funny.
We'd see that movie being made.
Well, I don't know, Roger, but that's
I don't think so.
Is that the essence of your criticism of a comedy?
If it's not funny, then it is the essence.
But you said it was funny. You've got to rethink your
No,
thoughts
I
on
said
this.
that.
I love that. I think that Zendaya was a really good actress. I really like her. I enjoyed the drama as well. I thought the drama was an interesting movie. Freud said that we don't repeat choices because we like to suffer. Repetition exists because the unconscious tries desperately to create a different ending for the same story. I just like this lady smoking cigarettes. I think that, oh, this is funny also. And I think we'll end on that. 4 types of democratic socialists. Uses summer as a verb. Attends the Met Gala in a 5-figure dress, stiffs all her vendors. Went to private school, family owns a luxury compound in another country. Dad bought him a house, mom bought him a business. Yup. Champagne socialists. Somehow 10 people are here, but I guess everybody's just lurking it out today. Lurky. I don't know if I should continue this. I think that's all I had to say about any of that. About Euphoria, Mr. Beast, whatever. Yeah. If Terry's here, which she doesn't seem to be today, I really wish she would look at Sam Levinson's chart and tell us what she thinks about it. But I don't think she's here today, so that's a bummer. But if anyone who's watching this on catch up looks up Sam Levinson's chart and they're into astrology, please let me know what you think. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for me today. I hope everyone's had an awesome time listening to me ramble on about our porn-mogged culture and how Euphoria, the television show that recently ended on HBO, is merely a mirror, and that interesting art creates compelling conversation. See you, do memento mori. And Supra, thanks for your contributions today. I'll catch you on flip side. Take care.